My name is Taylor Fens. I am the on-site manager as well as the first artist in residence here at Creator Square. And with me today is Blake Fleegle, who is the Cambria County entrepreneurial coach from Jari here in Johnstown. And I'll let Blake kind of talk a little bit more about what he does and how he works with Creator Square residents as well as the local community. Before I hand it over to him, I have a list of people to thank on behalf of Creator Square. The program was envisioned by and supported through a number of organizations: Carnegie Mellon University, Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, Jari, Southern Alleghenies Planning and Development Commission, Startup Alleghenies, Discover Downtown Johnstown Partnership, Entrepreneurial Alchemy, and the Johnstown Redevelopment Authority. Funding sources for the approximately $750,000 project include the Pennsylvania Department of Community and Economic Development, the U.S. Economic Development Administration, the U.S. Department of Defense, Cambria County Government, Community Foundation for the Alleghenies, and private donations. So without further ado, I'll hand it over to Blake for the short presentation part of this.
All right, thanks, Taylor. I appreciate you, the introduction, and allowing me to be here for this. And thank you to Creator Square for the cool things that you guys are doing. I think I know about half of the people on here. So what I'm going to do is do a quick introduction of Jari, the place I work for. And then I'll do a little spiel about myself and why I became an entrepreneur coach. And then we'll just open it up to questions and answers. So to start with, I work for Jari, which stands for Johnstown Area Regional Industries. We're located downtown, just right around the corner from Taylor Creator Square. Jari is an economic development agency, and we have three main parts. The first part is called a PTAC, which stands for Procurement Technical Assistance Center, which is a whole bunch of words that mean nothing, but what they do is they help businesses contract with the government. So anyone who wants to do government contracting, it's free assistance to those individuals and businesses to help them manage the contracts, make appropriate bids, stuff like that. The second branch of Jari is our workforce development team. And what they do is they connect employers with qualified candidates in the region. And then if they see that there aren't enough qualified candidates, Jari provides training for the local community, so that way we can find and get individuals who are qualified. So for example, we do CDL training. We just did a maintenance course. So we do courses like that for individuals to get trained up to meet the jobs that employers need. And then the last part of Jari, which is where I work, is the small business team. We do three main things. The first one is entrepreneur assistance. So this is a free service we provide to anyone who either has a business or wants to start a business. So it's one-on-one coaching for anything and everything the entrepreneur needs. And then the second piece is we provide microloans. So a lot of small businesses and entrepreneurs struggle to find financing because banks are really wary of investing in new companies. So we kind of fill that gap where the banks won't, and we have a microloan program to help people get off the ground. And then the last piece is for all of our microloan clients, we provide technical assistance. So not only do you access to me, which I know I'm great, but we have other people on our team who can do graphic design, can help you with bank financing, we can help you with accounting, legal issues. So we have a whole team that we wrap around our microloan clients, which the whole point being the reasons why banks won't do loans for new entrepreneurs is because they're so risky and so many of them fail. So we recognize that problem. And instead of like a bank gives you the money and then says, good luck, send me my check every month, we're going to help you the whole way along the way to make sure that your startup process goes as smoothly as possible. So that's what we do. That's what Jari is. And if you guys will give me 10 minutes, I'd just like to talk about myself. So feel free. I'm going to ask a couple questions throughout my spiel here. So if you guys just want to unmute and yell out answers to the questions, that's cool. If anyone wants to turn on their camera so I can see them, that's also cool. If not, that's okay. So starting off, I went to high school not too far away from Johnstown in Somerset. So I graduated from Somerset High School in 2004. And the whole time while I was working, or while I was going to school, I got a job at, it used to be the Palace Theater in Somerset. So it's not there anymore. It's now, well, it was a department store and now it's a Harbor Freight. So it's not like you wouldn't even know from the outside, but I worked at that movie theater for about 3.5 years. And then whenever I graduated high school, I decided to go to Duquesne College in Pittsburgh. So I lived and went to school right in the middle of downtown Pittsburgh. And I was there for 4 years. But in my junior year, I decided that I would take a trip to London. So I did study abroad in London for an entire semester. And like many young and dumb kids in college, I fell in love whenever I was in London, right? So I fell in love with a girl. But the weird part is she wasn't from London. She was actually from Canada. So study abroad ended. I moved back to Pittsburgh, but we stayed in contact. And then whenever I graduated college, I graduated in 2008 with my bachelor's degree in business. I decided that it would be a good idea to move to Canada. So like most people in Johnstown and the areas, I thought, it'd be great to get the heck out of here. Like, why would I want to be in Johnstown, right? So I packed up everything and moved to Canada. I immigrated to Canada. I had my own Social Security, the Canadian version of Social Security number. I had a Canadian bank account. And I ended up with a really good job. I was working for the Department of EHS. So in Canada, healthcare is nationalized. So the government pays for all healthcare. And I was working for the team who did ambulance service. So I wasn't a paramedic. It wasn't anything that crazy. I worked in an office, but I had a really good job. They wanted me to stay there and they wanted to sponsor me to become a citizen. But then one day, about a year into my life in Canada, I got a letter in the mail, right? So I get this letter in the mail. It's from my parents. My parents still live in Somerset. My dad's a teacher, or my mom's a teacher. My dad's a car salesman. So I got this letter from my parents in Somerset. I opened the letter, read the letter, and then I decided, you know what? I'm going to quit my job and I'm going to move back home. So that's exactly what I did. So my question to you guys, if you're listening, would be, what could that letter have possibly been that would make me leave my life in Canada, quit my job, break up with the girlfriend, and move back to Johnstown of all places? So if anyone's paying attention, unmute and see if you can. It was nothing bad. Like, no one died, everyone was fine. So
That's what I was gonna say. I was gonna like, did someone pass away?
no, everybody was fine.
Was the Westwood Plaza up for sale?
Hey, you're right, Dave. So I'm an entrepreneur coach, right? So I'm an entrepreneur. So there was an article in the Tribune Democrat that the old owner of the Westwood Plaza Theater, his name was Andy Lasky, he announced in the paper that he was going to sell the theater. And I thought, you know what? I'm young. I worked in a theater. I can do it. So I moved home and I decided I'm going to buy the Westwood Plaza Theater. But there was one big problem with me moving back to buy the Westwood Plaza Theater. And that was I was broke. So I was a year out of college. I had student loan debt. I had maybe $1,000 in my bank account. And the theater was unfortunately not for sale for $1,000. So I found myself in this position where, okay, I want to buy the theater, but I have no money, right? So first thing everybody thinks of is go to the bank, get a loan, right? A bank loan for a business is just like a bank loan for a house or a car. They'll give you some of the money, but they won't give you all the money. So the bank was willing to finance most of the purchase, but I still needed down money. So just like buying a house or buying a car, I needed a down payment in order to buy the business. But I didn't have any money. My mom's a teacher, my dad's a car salesman. They certainly didn't have any money. So another question for you guys, if I was successful, I did buy the business. So that worked out, but where did I come up with the money? Nothing bad, I didn't do anything illegal. So where do you guys think I came up with the down payment money in order to buy the business?
Grant and seed funding.
No, it was not free money. I had to pay all the money back I used to buy the business. It was not grant money, it wasn't seed money, it wasn't from an investor.
Loans?
Connor says SBA loan, and he is incorrect.
You borrowed money from a family friend.
Nope, I did not borrow money from a family friend. So there's one person who I mentioned. Oh, Connor got it. So, and I don't know if you guys can see it, but in the chat, Connor just wrote seller financing, and he is exactly right. So Andy Lasky, the guy, he unfortunately passed away a few years ago, but he was gracious enough to finance my down payment. So because he was willing to go in second lien position on the loan, the bank looked at it as a real down payment. So I bought my first business when I was 23 years old for no money down, no cash out of my pocket. So that's how I got into business. So that was 2009 whenever I bought my first business. 3 years later, in 2012, I opened my second location. So I now own the Westwood Plaza Theater in Johnstown, and then I have another movie theater in Latrobe called the Latrobe 30 Theater. So a lot's happened since then. I got married. I have 3 beautiful daughters. I did not get married to the girl from Canada. I found someone even better. So I have a new wife, which she can hear me. She's in the other room. So she's bonus points for me right now. So all this stuff happened, and I found myself in this position where I had ran 2 businesses, one for a decade, one for 7 years. And I thought, I'm not expanding, but over this past decade, I've learned so much. And what can I do with that knowledge to help other people? Because I know how hard it is to start. Like when I started, I didn't connect with Jari. So I didn't have someone who I could call when I had problems. If I had issues with financing or issues with employees or how to set up my business, I didn't have anyone to call. So I thought, how can I help these people? And coincidentally, Jari started their program with Startup Alleghenies to provide coaching to entrepreneurs. So there was a guy here before me named Jose, and he moved on to another company. And I jumped on the opportunity and started with Jari in 2019. So I've been a coach in Cambria County and the whole surrounding region for a little over 2 years now, providing stories and just life advice for anyone who has a business or wants to start a business in Cambria and the surrounding areas. So I still own the theaters. I would like to tell everyone I work at Jari during the week and I sell popcorn on weekends. So I'm a busy guy, but I have a lot of fun and I really like what I do. And that's a little bit about me. So I apologize if I went long. I think I'm supposed to be 15 minutes. So, so that's all I have for you guys. So let's just open it up if anyone has questions.
What was the biggest thing that played a role in you moving back to Canada and making such a large decision and starting your own business?
So I think there's one thing in common with all entrepreneurs is that they have this insane drive to do what they want to do, right? So entrepreneurship is fun, it's rewarding, there's opportunities for you to make a ton of money, but the one thing that people from the outside don't see is how hard it is. And that's why not many people do it, because I tell people when you're starting out, you can pick any hours you want. It's just going to be 100 a week. And there's not a whole lot of people who are willing to commit to that. And so I think I was just born with this drive to want to do more, work harder, better myself. And so when I saw that article in the paper, like most people 1 year out of college wouldn't think, you know what I can do? I can buy this movie theater because I worked at a theater for 3 years. Like people just don't think that. But when I saw it, I thought, you know what? I'm going to do it. And I had no money, but I decided I'm going to pack up all my stuff, move home, and give it a shot anyways. I don't know if I answered your question.
No, you totally did. I mean, I'm pushing 30 and I couldn't imagine doing something like that when I was 23. So yeah. That's really impressive. Seriously.
One of my first employees, I had like 10 whenever I started. One of my first employees was over 60 years old. So whenever I started. And the crazy thing is when I started at Westwood, I had been in negotiations for months with the owner, but I had never actually worked there. So I had worked at a movie theater, but not that movie theater. So I went into the business, literally I signed the papers on a Friday morning, went in Friday afternoon. Hey everyone, I'm the new owner. Please tell me how to do everything. So I had to be trained. So I worked the first 6 months. I worked 7 days a week. I got up at 6 o'clock in the morning, went to the theater and did paperwork. Then we were open from 10 to 11 o'clock at night. So I got up at 6, did paperwork for a couple hours, worked from 10 a.m. to 11 p.m., usually stayed for another hour or two finishing up paperwork. drove back to Somerset, and then did it all again. So I worked 15, 16 hours a day every single day for 6 months. It was 6 months until I took my first day off.
Wow.
Wow.
But like, I mean, I loved it. Like, it was fun. Like at night after everybody left, I would just go in the theater and sit and relax and think, holy cow, I can't believe this is actually mine and this is what I'm doing with my life. So it was a lot of fun.
Really cool.
I have a question. So
Yeah.
I am obviously one of Blake's, what would you call me?
Client,
Client.
friend. Yeah.
So I'm trying to start a business, and I'm still in the like business plan portion, the business plan development portion. And I'm terrified of the point where I get to financing
Mhm.
and taking out business loans and things like that. So how did you justify, and were you scared, and were there things that you did to make up for that fear of potentially borrowing money from a bank or a friend or whatever in order to start this business? Like, how did you see the finish line? Was it all laid out so it was clear to you and it was a little less scary, or like through the business plan process, or did you just kind of have to jump and say, this will likely be fine, you know?
Yeah.
The movie theater was functioning, it'll function again.
Yeah. So what you're talking about is common with a lot of, especially businesses that aren't existing. So like, for example, my theater in Latrobe, it was operated by someone else, but they had closed and they didn't do anything like what we do. They didn't have a kitchen. They didn't serve food. They were only open on the weekends. They weren't open 7 days a week. So it was basically starting fresh. And the part that you have to be comfortable with as the entrepreneur is your financial projections. So it freaks everybody out when I say this, but you literally just have to guess. So it's going to be an educated guess, but you, at some point, you have to guess on how many customers you'll have, what price they're willing to pay. So at some point, you have to sit down with all those numbers, look at them, and you have to be comfortable saying to the bank, this is what I think I can do. It's obviously, it's not a sure shot. You know, entrepreneurship is super risky, but you have to be comfortable in your own skin to walk up to someone and say, hey, here's my numbers. This is how much money I think I can make over the next 3 years. Will you give me a loan so that way I can do it? And it's scary and it's uncomfortable, and a lot of people hate it. And you know, everybody hates my answer when they say, hey, how do you do projections? And I say, you guess. Everybody hates that answer, but that's how it works, and that's what everybody does. Even the most successful businesses started with, you know, a 3-year income statement of a guess on what they thought they could make.
Is there this, okay, so what I'm hoping to find is when I do get to this point where so I've gotten a loan for what I think I need in order to build, like, have the business established, and it's building all the equipment I need to make, you know, whatever I'm making there, maybe an employee, and then enough money to get me through those hopefully not any more than 2 years of like weirdness, trying to build up that income enough to start paying my loans off and everything. So when you got to the point where you had it all and you were in it, and you're starting to bring that money in, and it was like, this is kind of slow and scary, did you start getting realizations that like, oh wait, time moves a little bit slower, or, you know, like I can kind of see now that everything's laid out, that I will be able to pay off these loans in this amount of time because of this, and maybe if it goes a little bit longer, it won't screw me, or were the realizations that calmed your nerves once you got into it?
Well, the first part is my projections that I thought I would do were absolute trash. Like nothing in there was what I thought it would be. But it came out on balance. Like some of the expenses I thought were going to be really high because I didn't know, like, what does it cost to run payroll? I didn't have someone like me who I could call and ask. I had no idea. I had this massive budget for payroll and how much I was going to pay people. But it turned out, you know, I was willing to work, you know, 120 hours a week. So I didn't have as big a payrolls, right? So there was some expenses where I paid less, but then others where I paid more. Like I didn't have in my projections that I would have to pay a towel company $250 a month to wash towels, and the bug guy to come spray the theater every month, another $125. Like there's just some of these things that you don't see going into it, but then there's other things that because you're just guessing. So you
How did
guess
you
way
do it?
off.
When you ran into that expense, did you refinance? I don't even know if I'm using the right terms. I'm a baby at
Yeah.
it. Did you have to go back to the bank, or did you like borrow money from someone else, or what'd you do?
So when I first started Westwood, I was very lucky that on balance, I came out on the positive side. So my first 3 years, I made more money than I expected to. But then whenever I opened Latrobe, the opposite was the case. So I thought, I have this really successful business in Johnstown. I'm going to pick it up and transplant it to Latrobe, and it's going to be just as successful right out of the gate because, people love it here. They're going to love it there. But what I didn't realize was that the whole community around Latrobe they don't come to Johnstown. They don't hang out in Johnstown. They don't know what Johnstown is. So when I opened up there was this huge learning curve where honestly, I've been there for 8 years. People still come in and ask us if we serve pizza because before me there's a pizza shop beside and you could order pizza and like carry it in. So even though I've been there for 8-9 years now, people still think that we serve pizza, but we've made sandwiches for 9 years. So like, I didn't realize that it was going to take so long for the community to find us, come and experience it, and then go out and tell their friends. So it was like a snowball, right? So when I started out, it was a lot smaller than I expected. And we kept pushing that snowball and it got bigger and bigger and bigger to where now it's successful and it's just as busy as Westwood. But I didn't expect that that it would be so small when I started. So I was short on financing. And that was actually my first experience with Jari was I reached out to them for an assist with financing and they came through for me.
Cool.
Yeah, it was when they first started one of the loan programs. It was when they had first started. I was one of their first borrowers, which I didn't know that at the time, but
That's interesting. That's ironic.
yeah. So now like I work for Jari, but I also have experience on the other side. So I know what a loan and the support that they offer, I know what that can mean for a business.
Gotcha. So going forward, I can keep asking questions because I'm starting a new, small business too, but this is definitely less for me and more for you guys. So if I'm talking, just turn your mic on and I'll see you've turned your mic on, and I'll, wrap up what I was saying so that you guys can ask whatever you want. This is really, really open, whatever's on your mind. Literally, it doesn't matter what point you're at. Maybe you just jumped on here and you just now realized that you're interested in starting a business. That is fine. Or maybe you're way further than I am and you're embarrassed to ask a question because I'm don't be embarrassed. Please jump on there because that's, I'm gonna have to think about the things that you're asking too. Yeah. So you mentioned that Jari provides microloans. What would be a microloan and what would be a normal loan? And is there a microloan?
Yeah, so they're called microloans because the maximum we can do is $50,000. But that doesn't necessarily mean that if you have a project larger than that, then we can't help you. So we like to say that we play in the sandbox with everybody. So if you have a project larger than $50,000, you can go to the bank who you're most comfortable with. And then similar to me, how I got seller financing in order to get my loan across the finish line, Jari can come in with a microloan to save the day and get your business across the finish line.
Okay, gotcha. So what is so the max would be 50,000, and then so it's not like set amounts. I could come in there and ask for $20.
Yeah, you could. I don't think I've ever done a loan that small, but we've done some small ones.
Why anyone would. So how much is the interest rate on those loans?
So it depends on how your loan scores, which a common misconception is that it's based on your credit score. And while that's a factor in how we review loans, it's not the only factor. So there's multiple factors: how long you've done the thing you want to do, whether you work for somebody else, what kind of industry it is, a million different things. But the loan is going to vary somewhere between 5 and 7.5%, which is pretty competitive as far as bank financing for commercial loans. It's more than what most people see when they look at like real estate financing. But as far as business financing goes, we're pretty competitive that way.
Cool.
And along with the interest rate, the term is between 5 and 7 years, along the same lines, depending on how it scores when we review it. I don't review it. help you fill out the paperwork, and then these other people who are way more important than me decide.
So you said like if I had experience within the field that I wanted to start a business, it would be a little bit easier. So the fact that I went to school for metalsmithing and I've been a practicing metalsmith selling my work for 9 years, and I've worked for other jewelers and their small businesses, like 2 or 3 different ones. That would be really, really positive, right? That would be, yeah. And so,
Yeah, it's like this whole big puzzle. We don't, like, people freak out and they email me and call me all the time, like, what's the credit score? What's your credit score limit? We don't have one because that's only one piece. Just like experience in the industry it's an important piece of the puzzle, and that will definitely help you in loan review, but it's not the only piece of the puzzle, right? So there's all these different things that we look at.
then let's think about, maybe my boyfriend Ben is also going through Jari to try to develop a business plan for a music venue here in Johnstown. And he went to school for like general education. Like he got his like general degree, and he's, spent the majority of it in somewhere in ecology, or like so it's completely unrelated, but he's been a musician for a long time.
Yeah.
What would help him, considering that he doesn't quite have as much professional background in what he wants to do?
The biggest piece of the puzzle when we review loans is going to be your business plan narrative. And a lot of people think that this business plan is like this 40-page document where you have to do all this research and get all this information. And I've seen business plans that are that big and that long, contain that information, and they're fine, but that's not what you need in a business plan. In a business plan, you have to provide a compelling reason why you are the person to create this business, because there's such a need for it, right? So Ben, as an example, he needs to come across and say, why do we need a music venue in downtown Johnstown? What are the reasons? Who are the people who are going to come there? Who are the bands that are going to play there? Who are the customers who are going to come there? So why does it need it? And why am I the guy to do that? Is it because he loves music and he really thinks that he can run it the best because he knows music and he knows what people are like? Or is it because he has a business background and he knows how to operate it and keep it lean and make it the most money he possibly can? There's a million different ways you can write it, but you just have to make it compelling. So whenever your loan gets reviewed, it's people just like you and I, they probably will never ever meet you. They're just going to see you on paper. So you have to make that business plan shine and say, like, just the words jumping off the page about how awesome this idea is and how you are the right person to do it.
Right. So what would be, thinking like, someone in his position he's not just now thinking about this, he's been wanting to run this business for a long time, but as far as like really getting down to the nitty gritty of a business plan, I mean, I haven't done that either. We're kind of in a similar
We're in the middle, in the gray area.
The only difference is that I just happen to already have a lot of experience talking to other people who have done what I want to do in different areas. And even around here, I know most of the metalsmiths that are here, and I've only been here for 2 months because I knew them before I got here. So like I've been involved in that community for a long time. So I'm not even asking you a question. I'm just going to answer it. A good thing then to do, and you tell me maybe if I'm wrong and if there's anything I should really be adding to this idea, that we should be not just talking to local businesses to see what's already here and what our competition is locally, but looking outside of this town and even, this country, looking around and seeing what's been super successful and then what could be adapted for the cultural climate within where you're trying to start your business.
Yeah, exactly. It's not necessarily because there isn't a music venue here. There could be other music venues, but what is going to make it special? Are you going to copy something that somebody else is doing, or are you going to do it new or different, or what's the compelling reason? So they're always going to look at it and go, like, why does this business exist? What need are you filling, right? So you have to figure out what that need that you're filling is, and then just jump right into that space and say about how awesome you're going to be whenever you do it.
Cool.
Kind of piggybacking off of that, Blake, what advice would you give to an entrepreneur starting up a business where that trait of that business is not something that is very common in that specific area. So for example, with myself, animation isn't something, when you say Cambria or Blair County, isn't the first thing people think of.
Right.
What would you say? I guess my thought is, what advice would you give to an individual who is approaching a trade or an idea with a trade that isn't so common within that area?
So I guess the biggest thing is you have to, number one, you're going to be able to geek out with the people who really understand animation, but recognize that in Cambria County, there aren't going to be a whole lot of people who you can geek out with. So how can you put what you want to do in layman's terms so that way you can approach it to people who in the community who you want to work with, right? So for example, animation, you know all about the Unreal Engine and how it's going to work and how you're going to render and all that stuff. But how do you describe that to someone who has no idea what Unreal Engine is, right? So you have to find the connection, whether it's Fortnite for you or whatever. Like, so for example, for you, you want to say, the thing that makes Fortnite look really good, we're going to do that, but turn it into a movie instead of a video game. And then it like snaps in people's head, right? Like, oh, okay, that makes sense. So you have to figure out whether it's animation or any other technology or something that's really niche, you got to figure out how you can explain that to the people in the community so that way they can get on board.
Got it. Yeah. I know my current situation with Patch Animation, which is my startup company, is that there are still a fair amount of theaters in the area, so there is an opportunity for potentially showing the content that is created down the road. But looking, and as you mentioned earlier, I mean, depending on the trade, finding your core circle locally, for us, I think it's some of it, maybe even it's starting to create that circle and find people that are interested in it, because as I've noticed, I used to live in bigger, I mean, I'm from the area, but I used to live in bigger cities where this is very common. So coming back here, I feel like there's a potential to grow that circle and that trade. But I think initially it is trying to find the right path and voice here locally, as I feel like number one, who are you speaking to, and then how to find those right people. So that definitely makes sense, what you're saying.
Yeah, it's all about finding your tribe and finding that group of people who you can connect with and they can geek out with or just talk shop or whatever, finding those people who have similar experiences.
Or call your entrepreneurial coach, Blake.
Yeah, or just call me and we can hang out. So Luke asked a question in the chat. He said, what was the scariest move, to Duquesne, to London, to Canada, or back to Johnstown to buy the theater? That's a good question, actually. I don't know if anyone's ever asked me that. I would say the scariest move was actually probably to London. So even though I knew it was only going to be 3 months, it was still really far away, right? So it's a 6-hour time difference. I went there, I knew literally one person whenever I went there. I was going to college in a whole nother country with people who, at least they spoke the language, right? But it was, and I was young, like I was 20 years old. So that was definitely the scariest. It worked out. I had a really good time. I got to travel all over Europe. It was amazing. If anyone's in college, totally recommend study abroad. I spent a ridiculous amount of money. There was a point in my life when I lived there that I think I was actually in Italy, and it was a spring break that was supposed to be 1 week, and we just decided we're going to make it 3 weeks, right? So I was in Italy and I went, I forget, I was buying like a soda or something, and I went to use my credit card and it wouldn't work. And I was like flabbergasted, like, why isn't my credit card not working? And come to find out, it's because I had accidentally maxed it out. So, it wasn't because I was abroad, it was literally because I just spent too much. So I unfortunately came home to a whole bunch of debt, but it was an amazing time. It was scary before I went, but I had a great time whenever I was there.
I have one quick question that I think the topic is important, but I'm just curious more so of your answer. Could you speak to the importance, just briefly, on routine? you know, you as individuals who maybe don't own their own business initially, you're so used to doing the 9 to 5 or whatever else it may be. And I'm just curious of your thoughts on a routine as people start their business. I know you mentioned it's like 100 hours a week, et cetera, but I'm just curious from the routine aspect, your thoughts.
Yeah, so I tell people all the time I live like just a ridiculous life. So I work a ton of hours here, and then I would go to the one theater that I own, then go to another theater I own, and I have employees calling me, clients calling me. I live a crazy life, but I still always fall into this routine. Like I work 4 days for Jari. I know what I'm doing for the most part throughout the week, and then every Friday I get up a little bit early in the morning. I go to Dunkin' Donuts, I get my coffee, and I drive to Latrobe, and I work there for 12 hours. Like everyone falls into this routine. So even if you have a crazy life, you're always going to fall into this routine, and that's how you kind of balance yourself, right? And that's why whenever I first started the theater, I would get up so early and go into the theater, because I knew that if I didn't get all that paperwork done in the morning, it'd be hanging over my head, and I wouldn't have the opportunity to interact with customers and my employees and live in the moment there if I was worried about all the paperwork sitting on my desk. So it was really important for me to get that routine going where I would get up in the morning early, do my paperwork, I listen to music in my office, just relax. And then when the door's unlocked, I put all that stuff away until tomorrow, and then I just work downstairs. So even though my life was crazy and I had no idea literally what I was doing, like I was just making up as I went, I still fell into this routine where it was comfortable for me. And that's where you have to get whenever you're running a business. If you get to a point where you're frazzled and there's too much going on, you have to step back and really look at the full situation and figure out where you can find that breathing room, and you can still be working when you find that breathing room. You still have to figure out how to get that routine working for you.
Yeah, the reason why I asked that is just because I know in my life and just personal struggle is having a lot of balls in the air and trying to find a way to find what is the top priorities and what can be done tomorrow or next week. But yeah, that's totally fair. What you suggested.
And the further you get into your business, when you get employees, I know you have business partners who you're working with. That's why I'm able to do the things that I can do. It's not because I'm so amazing, right? It's because I have really good people who work with me and for me. So for example, I run these two businesses, but I don't pay any of the bills. I don't count any of the money. My wife does all that. So she runs all the books, she runs payroll, she does all that stuff for me. So I don't have to do that. So that's taken off my plate. Same reason we're open 7 days a week, but I'm able to work at Jari because I have managers who over the years I developed a relationship with and I can trust. So I know that I don't have to be there every second of every day. And I know that the customers who come in are still going to have a good experience. So it's finding those things that you can take off your plate and then the things that you want on your plate. So for example, I still, even though I'm not at the theater every single day, I still pick and choose every movie that we play. So I might not be there, but that's one of the things that I wanted to have control over. So I control what movies we play, and I also control the food we bring in and what we cook. So I control the menu. So there's some things that I thought were so important that I really wanted to do, but then other things who I decided that I could trust other people to do. Not that they couldn't do the things I do, but you have to decide what's really important to you and the business.
That's totally fair. I think you know this with me, but it's finding time to delegate certain things is so difficult, especially when you have partners that specialize in different things. So it's like that one thing is on your plate and just find ways to time manage. Yeah.
And as the business owner, it's all still going to fall on you, right? So like I still, even though I've been there for 10 years and I have all these employees, there's still times where someone will call me last minute and they'll say, hey, I can't work. And I know it's on me. So I have to, on my 1 day off of the week, I have to go in or, I'm the only one working and someone blows up the bathroom. I don't want to do it, but I'm the guy that has to go in and clean the toilets, right? There's no job too small for me either. So that's the good and the bad, I guess, of being your own boss.
You just totally gave me the nice part about being remote now.
Yeah. Dealing with the public is certainly not for the faint of heart, I can tell you that much.
Yeah, I would have, hearing you say that maybe before I came here, maybe a year ago, but even just right before I got to Creator Square, hearing you talk about that, I would still have this nervousness, I think, of like, but how do you juggle it? Like you say, you just figure it out, but how, I would have a hard time believing, because I'm definitely the type of person that puts too much on their plate. But
Yeah.
I also don't think I knew the real meaning of that until getting here and managing Creator Square, like so many facets of Creator Square alongside Paul, and a lot of the community has been really helpful here. But then starting a small business and trying to keep up with my creative practice and maybe have, time with my boyfriend like a little bit.
Right.
um it's on, you really don't have a choice. Like you either have to like just drop the ball completely and hope when it lands it doesn't shatter everything and just dip out, or you have to sit and be like, okay, I need to take a deep breath. Everything's moving really, really fast, all at the same speed in different directions.
Yeah.
What do I want to grab at right now? And you grab at it, and then the next day you realize that, hopefully the other things didn't fall through the cracks. But it definitely, like when I first got here, I felt like I'm not going to be able to handle any of these trains that are going full speed.
Right.
All of
And
a
that-
sudden, like you just start paying attention to one at a time, and you do have time to start a business and all that. It might be one day out of the week where you really devote time and energy into thinking about things, but that's most of the time. I find
and,
you
and
have to
it's,
think about it first, and it takes time to think about these things.
yeah, and there's all these priorities, and like I'm not trying to say that I'm perfect and that I did everything right whenever I first started. I can't tell you how many things I screwed up and how many things I got wrong. But that's what it is. There's no rule book. There's no one's going to tell you, hey, you really need to focus on this today and not this. No one's ever going to tell you that. You just have to do the best you can, and then importantly, learn from those mistakes. So if you chose the wrong thing, next time you're in that scenario, you choose the other things. So that way you don't screw up again, right? So no one's perfect. You're going to make mistakes. Just have to hope that it's not a tragic mistake, basically. But it's business and it's risky, and that's always a concern.
What happens if you do make a tragic mistake, hoping that I don't know, what happens if you make a tragic mistake? Like what happens if your business fails?
That fails. There's no one's going to pick up the pieces for you. It'll crash and burn, and there'll be a for lease sign on the place where you rented, and the landlord will come in and take all your crap and sell it, or that those are the things that happen, unfortunately, every single day to businesses across America. There's no saving grace. There's no one who's going to come in and bail you out. That's the real risk that entrepreneurs take whenever they start their business, that if you make the wrong decision, it's all on you. No one's going to come and clean up your mess. So that is the scary part of it, is that you really have to make sure when you're getting into it that you know exactly what you're getting into.
But there's ways to set it up to where you personally are not going to go down with the ship.
Yeah, so there's we probably don't have time to go in all the different pieces of legal entities and business structures, but that's certainly something that you want to talk to someone, whether it's a coach like me or seek legal counsel. There's ways to set up your business so that way your personal home, me and my wife and my kids aren't going to be out on the street if I say the wrong thing and screw up and the theaters blow up, right? So there's ways that you can organize your business. It's never going to be foolproof. There's risk involved with running your business no matter what, but there are certainly things you can do, such as setting up a corporation or an LLC, that can mitigate that risk for you personally.
Yeah. How easy is it to try to start a new business if your first one's failed?
It's the fact that a business failed in your past does not make it any harder for you to start a business. I tell people all the time, you can
through it starts to not feel so risky.
Yeah. Well, I mean, there was all the repercussions of that failure, right? But like I tell people all the time, if you want to, you can be a sole proprietor and you can snap your fingers right now and say, hey, I started my business in Pennsylvania, and that's about all you have to do, right? There's not a whole lot of steps it takes to start a business. A lot of people think that there's this business license that you have to get, but that's not really a thing. It may be in other states, but in Pennsylvania, it's not a thing. You have to go to the IRS website and in about 5 seconds, type in your information and get an EIN number, and boom, you're a business.
Yeah, I figured it out when I was 16. I wish I hadn't. I wish it wasn't.
Right.
I wish something would have stopped me.
So like you can do it that way, or you can spend 6 weeks, talk to an attorney, make sure you set things up the right way. And then when you set yourself up for success by taking a little bit of time to think through some of those things. I tell people all the time, you want to, like, especially people who have multiple business partners, everything is great before you start your business. Your ideas are perfect. Everything is going to be awesome. So whenever you're setting up your business, you need to have those conversations. Like, it's good now, but what if it goes bad, right? So who's going to take the lion's share of the financial responsibility if this goes belly up? Who is going to be the person if, I say that, hey, we're not going to work in metal, me and Taylor, we're not going to work in metal anymore. We're going to start working in wood. And you say, no, we're not. We're going to keep doing metal. Like, if it's just the two of us, who makes that decision? Like, when things are happy, you can decide that. If you wait too long and you're in the middle of fighting, the worst thing that can happen for a business is it to go nowhere, right? So if you want to do metal and I want to do wood and we both fight and it's exactly 50-50, we could end up just stalling out and the business goes nowhere. So it's important to do the setup the right way so that way you set yourself up for success.
Yeah.
Cohesion is a point that goes with that. Like, you can have two things going at once, but that could be confusing to your audience, and it could, like, the cohesiveness I think it's a thing that humans are really drawn to and understand, and we have a hard time accepting and understanding things that feel split.
Yeah, I just to give some perspective on that. So we're 19 months in, and I have two business partners, including myself. And although we have very similar backgrounds, we do have different personalities. And I would say that it's really important, from my experience, to know who you're going into business with, rather than just people who are talented. Get to know them a little bit more. We're very fortunate that we all vibe, but Blake just nailed it right on the head, because honestly, we have a partners meeting. We have our team meeting on Tuesdays, and then we have our partners meeting afterwards, and it goes for at least 3 hours every Tuesday. And it's going through everything with the business. We're remote, but it also talks about the idea of where we are disagreeing on what topics or what needs to be discussed to make sure that we come out as a unified voice to make a decision. And sometimes with a animation pipeline, each individual specializes in something. So we're going to usually take that person's, voice at face value. But there are certain things, like right now we're in the middle of a Kickstarter and we're talking about some additional marketing that we want to do. And it's like, okay, how are we going to approach X, Y, and Z? And we need to have a discussion about that. And what is the messaging? And, there's just so much that can, come into play. So firsthand, totally accurate, like maybe too accurate.
I tell everyone that's why Jari pays me the big bucks, because I get advice.
You can see why.
Well, if anyone else, has anything else that they'd like to ask, please feel free. Otherwise, I think we'll be wrapping up here in the next few minutes. If anyone has any last questions for Blake, please feel free to unmute your mic and ask, or even type it in the chat. That's fine too.
I am currently typing my name and email address into the chat. So if anybody was too nervous to ask a question here, just feel free to grab my email from there and shoot me an email. Like I said, it's a free service Jari provides, or anybody who even thinks they want to start a business. So, and as Taylor can attest to, I'm usually pretty easygoing and easy to talk to. So just reach out, shoot me an email. I'm happy to chat with whoever about it, whatever.
Sometimes I just vent for like the first 30 minutes and I ask.
Yeah, it's okay. I talked to a client today, and it was like 20 minutes into the conversation. She finally took a deep breath and goes, "I'm sorry I had to vent to you, but I just had to talk to somebody." It's okay, I believe me, of all people, I get it.
It's part of running a business, and I guess part of being a business coach. Okay.
All right, I guess that's it. Well, Taylor, thank you so much for letting me be a part of this.
Absolutely.
Super pumped about Creator Square and the awesome things you guys are doing.
Thank you so much. Thank you for everyone that joined in today. And thank you, David, for offering up all your experience as well. That really helped and contributed to the dynamic of the conversation.
Of course.
So
Great
thank
to
you
meet you.
everyone for attending. This video is being recorded and will be posted up on the Creator Square website for anyone who wants to go back and take a look. And Blake did put his contact information into the chat box. So please feel free to contact him directly with any questions you might have, or to, take advantage of his coaching in whatever form you can. Thank you, everyone, and have a fantastic night. Thank you, Blake.
See you guys.